Hello and welcome to another episode of News of the Week. And today I want to address a thing that some people may have been a little bit perplexed about. And even though we are normally not really paying that much attention or are particularly deeply into stock market and international stock markets and stuff like that, you still have something that's called the markets. And I find it quite interesting to look at what are those who actually report about the markets looking for, what are they reporting about, how are they actually going about the analysis. And what I'm finding and what is kind of surprising to me is that if you look at 2023, where so many people had said the markets and the economy will be struggling, well, right now the data doesn't really support the struggle. Now, given there is still a substantial amount of inflation, there's very much higher prices, especially in foods and things like that, than what we used to or what we were used to. And I don't really personally believe that they will ever really come significantly down again. Things like electricity and gas and fuel and stuff, those kinds are fluctuating. But things like food prices and a lot of other things. But what I really find striking in this time, as we're kind of transitioning into fall and winter for 2023, or you could say the second half of the year, is that the stock market and the markets generally have been holding up pretty well. And the fear of further increases of interest rates by the Federal Reserve is still in the background. And we now have this really interesting and to me really strange phenomenon where bad news becomes good news, right? So we had last week news that there were not as many new jobs created in the employment markets as had been anticipated. And that was portrayed as good news, even though anybody would normally say the more new jobs, the better for the economy. But if you have too many new jobs, then all the statements that the Federal Reserve had been making would come true to say, if we cannot calm down the markets, including employment, then we have to keep increasing interest rates. So the bad news of not as many new jobs created is good for the markets, but only in the sense that interest rates are not getting raised. Then, for example, the information about the interest rates in general compared to last week getting the information for housing starts and housing prices, the markets, quote unquote, were surprised that prices for houses kept going up, which was an indication to say, well, that's not really good because that means people are actually willing to pay these higher prices. You know from many, many discussions that we have that the reason that they're willing to pay higher prices, that there is always a certain number of people who are somewhat desperate to upgrade or desperate to get into a new location, a new property, or they have been moving with their jobs or something like that. And what happens there is that they just come into the market and look what is available. And because, and I've explained this many times, we have this supply-demand situation that is totally unrelated to the interest rates or any of those other things. If you have something of which there's only very few, and there is a certain level of demand, then those very few things get more and more valuable. That is the reason why there are high prices for Rolex watches, high prices for very exotic cars like Lamborghinis and Ferraris, very high prices for Cartier, jewelry and stuff like that. Why? Because they are unique and there are very few of them. And we're getting in the housing market to a situation where we have very few houses that are not special or unique, but there are so few on the market because nobody with a low mortgage wants to sell, that those who really need or want one have to pay the prices. And so the prices, like everybody had anticipated in the housing and real estate market, have not really nearly come down, except for a few locations where they had gone way above any normal reasonable price and have come down from that. But overall in the marketplace, they haven't come down. And so those things are seen as negative for the markets because that could actually trigger the Fed to keep increasing rates. And worse, employment data, meaning like not as many new jobs like we found out last week have been created, that is going to be considered good for the markets. I find this really strange, but I wanted to bring it to your attention because that way, now that you have heard it and see me talk about it for News of the Week, maybe you want to pay a little bit of attention to the financial media and the reporting and find out, is that really what you're hearing, or is it just me who is kind of perplexed why things where you would normally say, that's not really such a good thing if we don't make enough new jobs or if people don't find enough new jobs, but somehow the financial industry tries to make us believe that we're a good thing. So pay attention to that. Otherwise, I hope I see you at the powwow, and have a good week. Stay safe and be well.